Monday, March 12th. I'm Scott.
I'm Rim.
And this is Geeknights. We have no internets.
Let's do this. So all of our faithful listeners might have noticed that there was, in fact, no show last Thursday night, which is a rare occurrence because it's very not often that we miss a show here.
Especially when there's no conventions or other weird things going on that are pretty much the only thing that can stop us from making shows.
Yeah, I mean, when we lays out, we usually have another excuse in addition. And this time, we were pretty much destroyed from all fronts. You see, our internet connection went down. Now, it didn't just go down. It went down, and it's still not up.
This is real bad.
Yeah, we're having to record the show, go over to a friend's house with a flash drive, and then upload it.
Ooh.
And I'm not liking this at all.
No, it's bad.
See, now, a few weeks ago, I mean, our internet is stupid fast. It's always been incredibly fast.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an OC3, but like I don't expect much from the local cable or DSL company. I expect them to give me something faster than dial-up that's good enough to watch YouTube. Our Cablevision, as whatever, regardless of what else I have to say about that company and certain things they do while they own Madison Square Garden and such, Optimum Online is pretty good. I mean, it's what we get, like 13 down and 2 up or something like that.
Yeah,
unlimited, and they don't filter us on anything.
And we get that all the time. Our internet speed really never drops ever. It's always just this amazing, never-ending beast.
I'm sure part of it is because no one else in our area, like living on our street, probably has it, or none of them use it enough to take away our bandwidth.
Well, even if they did, there aren't many houses near us, period.
Yeah, and also, they don't seem to care what we do. We can BitTorrent and we can do whatever we want, and Optimum Online doesn't really seem to care.
So a couple weeks ago, randomly, we started losing internet. Like our cable modem would just lose sync for a little bit, and then our network would go down for like a minute, and then it would come back up.
Yeah, I'd go and unplug the cable modem, plug it back in, and it would work again. So I'd be like, all right, we're back up.
Now, it wasn't happening with any increasing frequency. It just happened on this semi-regular basis starting suddenly. So whatever, we figured if this keeps up, we're going to call and make a complaint. And then one day, I believe this was Thursday.
Yes, well, here's what happened Thursday, right? So I ordered this laptop because I gave back my old laptop to the job I quit. So I had to buy a new one. So I bought a new one. I ordered it from Fujitsu, the company that makes it.
Now, never mind all the shipping issues Scott had.
You mean like how I ordered it in the middle of February and it didn't come until Thursday?
Yeah.
And how UPS sucks and doesn't accommodate people who work all day?
But no, Scott gets it, and he opens it up. He's really excited about it. And I got to admit, it's a really nice, cool little laptop. I really like it. I like it. What can I say?
It's good.
So he's starting to set it all up. So he starts, let's Vista boot, and he'll talk about Vista later because it took a while to boot the first time.
A long time.
But then he goes on the wireless to try to download Firefox, and he starts getting concerned because the internet is really, really slow. And
it would have taken me, it said Firefox downloading 5 hours. And I was like, what? Firefox shouldn't take 5 hours to download.
So I go upstairs, and I get on my computer just to look, and my internet's fine. It's stupid fast like always. So I come back down and say, hey, Scott, it's fine. Something's wrong with your laptop. So he's worried. He's looking.
So I plugged the wire in instead of using the wireless, and it's still a second. Then it's not working at all for a second.
So Scott can't download anything, and he's getting kind of worried about this. He's looking for drivers. Maybe there's a conflict. Maybe there's something wrong with it. Because every time his is slow, I go upstairs to my computer, and it's fine.
That was only really like 2 times.
3 times.
Whatever.
3 times.
I don't think it was 3 times.
It was 3 times.
Anyway, it was fast for me for like a minute, and I was able to download Firefox in 6 seconds when it was working properly. It took to download Firefox. Yeah, it's real fast when it works. Anyway, a little while later, after being slow, it just stopped working entirely.
Yep. You see, the timing was that every time I went upstairs, it had happened to be working again. And then every time I went downstairs, it had happened to not be working again. And it was basically this binary Boolean situation of on, off, on, off. And then one time it just went off and didn't come back.
And what would happen is I would look at the cable modem, and it has basically the only light that matters, because it's got like 6 lights on it. The only light that matters is the one that says cable. And basically, if it's getting a signal from the cable company, then that light will turn on and stay on. If that light is off, you're in trouble. And if that light is blinking, that means it's trying to get a signal. Now, occasionally, for like on Friday, like the light would stay on for a bit, but you wouldn't actually be able to do anything. You would get like 56% packet loss.
Yeah, so every other packet just doesn't make it where it's going. You can't really do anything on the internet that way.
Yeah, and while TCP/IP, we talked about, has reliability stuff going on, if you lose that many packets, you basically can't do anything.
I mean, you could, but like Firefox and most applications that you use on a normal basis are not equipped to use TCP sort of thing. And TCP/IP in a packet loss situation can actually end up being worse than UDP because of the ACK stuff, but I'm not going to get into that.
Yeah, but there's also the problem of timeouts, where even if you were losing 56% of the packets and you're resending packets that you missed, okay, so you're getting 46% performance, which is actually a lot less than 46% performance because of the way things work. It just takes so long to load the web page, and your web browser will just give up if it takes too long to get it, so you can't do anything at all.
Yeah, old web browsers would be a lot more patient. I remember going to websites back in the day where I'd have to sit there for 3 or 4 minutes waiting for each page to load.
I mean, I'm sure I could have gone to About Config and changed the timeout in Firefox and loaded a page or two, but is it really worth my time to sit there for an hour to load one web page?
So the one thing we were able to determine when we got onto the Optimum site once was that there was, in fact, a regional outage.
Well, I went to optonline.net to look at the system status, which is pretty handy that they put their system status on the internet. So
if my internet's down, I can log on to their website and find out if my internet's down.
Yeah, and basically all it said was that, the cable TV was A-OK, the phone, because they have digital phone service, it was A-OK, and that internet service was having issues. And I was like, okay, they're having issues. That explains it. And I let it be at that. Now, every time they've had issues in the past, it's always been fixed, by the next day. We woke up the next morning on Friday, and it wasn't working at all.
I tried to do my morning ritual, and I was paralyzed by the fact that I could not read Penny Arcade, nor could I get into Google Reader or look at Dig.
Well, I had no choice but to go to work, which I did.
I also went to work after grousing to Scott as I passed him that the internet's not working.
And when we got home on Friday, it still wasn't working.
So, outage is worse than ever. So eventually Scott calls Alex.
Well, I called Alex because he also has Optimum Online, but lives in our town, but not in our house. And he was having no problems at all.
Yeah, in fact, he hadn't had a problem from the start. So then Scott tries to call the Optimum Online help number, which you'd think would be an easy thing to do.
Yeah, well, here's the problem, is I look in the phone book for Cablevision, because that's the company that provides Optimum Online, and I find their number for our area, Dutchess County, and I call it, and it gives you the phone menu. Press 1 for English. I push 1 for English. And then they say, push 1 if you want to pay your bill. Push 2 if you want to do this, right? It's like, push 2 for service appointments and repair-related activities. And I was like, okay, that's not the option I need. That was the option I needed. If you push 2, then it says, push 1 for internet, push 2 for cable, and push 3 for phone. And you push 1 for internet. And then it says, to talk to customer service, push this next number. And I'm like, oh, goddamn. And it was totally, the menu system did not point me in the right direction. So for the longest time, I thought that there was another number I had to call to get the correct menu option. And it took me like 30 minutes just to call the right number. It sucked.
So eventually we get through and they say, we'll send a tech out. And they send a tech out and the mystery begins to deepen.
Well, here's the thing. Remember how I was complaining about UPS not accommodating people who aren't home all day? Well, Cablevision doesn't accommodate people who aren't home all day that well either.
They do it a lot better.
They do it better than UPS, but not that much better. Your choices are, during the week, you can have someone come, like, in a 3-hour window, like, between 10 and, 1, or 1 and 4, or 5 and 8, or something like that. None of those are good for someone who's out of the house 7 to 7 every day. So they can come on the weekend, but if they come on the weekend, they promise they'll come between 10 a.m. and 8 p.m. So it's like, fuck you.
10 a.m. and 8 p.m.
You've got to sit in your house or be close to your house for 10 hours out of the day.
I particularly like how they said, he'll call before he comes. And there was no call, but yet suddenly, out of the blue, this Optimum Online truck appears.
Yep. I mean, and the day before they came, because the appointment I made was for when? Sunday, right? On Saturday, they called me twice to make sure that we wanted the guy to come Sunday. All right, so the guy showed up.
And first he goes and looks at the outside part. And he sees a bunch of old stuff and he replaces it. He's like, yeah, this stuff's old. It has never been replaced. And then he comes inside and he tests and he doesn't get any signal. Then he tested another hole and he doesn't get any signal. And he tested another hole and he gets a weak-ass signal. So he starts telling us that the lines inside our house are bad. But then, just to be sure, because he's got a nagging kind of, he goes back outside and he climbs up the pole in front of our house. And he fiddles around up there for like 10 minutes. And he comes back down, he tests in the house, he goes back up there. He's going around for a while. And basically, there are numerous issues here, and they still haven't solved them all. For one, the wiring inside of our house, the coaxial cables, no one knows where they go. They're just kind of this mess. I'm thinking, whenever I get free time, like next weekend before they come, I'm going to disconnect all of our stuff, plug my fluke in, and see if I can trace this stuff out through the wall.
I don't know where the hell this stuff goes. I mean, it goes from the pole outside to our house, down the side of the house, into this box. Then they come out of the box and into a hole in the foundation of the house.
And then there are mystery coaxial holes appearing throughout the house in random places.
Yeah, I don't know where this thing comes out. I mean, it has to split at some point because...
Now, obviously, I know what happened here, because this happens a lot in older houses. Someone who builds a house and doesn't know much about anything, or actually a lot of people who have a pre-existing house do this too. They get cable, and then they have a bunch of TVs. Now, they don't know anything about signal loss or degradation or attenuation, so they just buy a bunch of splitters, stick them all over the place so they have coaxial going to every room in the house. And then they wonder why their cable TV's fuzzy and their internet doesn't work. So inside of our walls are coaxial cables that go about in various directions, which was never a problem before. In fact, our internet was stupid fast before, despite the fact that one of the cables we're using, which goes across my room and into the hall where all of our network equipment is stupidly bad. Like, it's a terrible coaxial cable. He tested. He's like, that cable is bad. Don't use it.
Yeah, but it still works.
It worked. See, the issue is, apparently, he tests on the pole, and he says, yeah, it looks like at the pole, you're like 12 decibels below what you should be at. The signal's real weak. So the signal was just strong enough before to get through that crappy wiring in your house to get to your cable modem. But now that the outside signal dropped, it's not going to cut it with that crappy wiring anymore.
So, supposedly, today, while I was at work, some guys came and fixed the stuff outside on the pole.
Now, the actual answer is that nothing has changed as far as we can tell.
Yeah, I mean, I can look outside because I saw the spot where the original guy was working, and I looked there, and the equipment had changed. There is new stuff on the wires outside. It hasn't changed anything with the inside situation at all. I have no internet. None. And I called the internet guys to be like, hey, it's still not working. And they're like, oh shit, so you're the top priority fix now, blah, blah, blah. But the guy at the cable company, they can test to see if they can get a signal to you with their equipment. And he's like, yeah, I got no signal to you, man. And I'm like, that's fantastic. You're awesome.
Now, I love how before they said, oh, someone will come within 48 hours. But now that we're a priority case, someone will come within a week.
Well, they'll come when I make an appointment. I could make an appointment for like Wednesday between 10 and 1, but people go to work. People can't be home. What the fuck?
Yeah, luckily, dear Emily is hanging around for spring break working on animation and other things. So hopefully we will be able to let her sit here and meet this stupid cable guy and let him do whatever he needs to do to get Geeknights back on the road.
Yeah, if she wasn't here, I would have had to sit here and meet the cable guy at 10 a.m. on Saturday.
Which also would have put a little bit of a damper on all of our plans to go out to Albany and hang out with the crew.
That might still be the case, but tomorrow I will try to call and reschedule to get the early Wednesday when Emily is here, and I'll tell her everything to tell the guy. And also, supposedly, they are going to send out senior type, the highest level of senior technician who will come and not leave until everything is fixed.
At least, while the guy Scott was talking to on the phone was not the most knowledgeable guy, the tech they sent out to our house knew what he was doing. Enough to identify the problem and then leave.
Yeah, anyone who has that job, knows enough. You can't get that job and not know anything. You'd go to places and just be blah, and then people would all be upset. It'd be useless.
Yep, he had the real fluke, too. The kind of fluke I always wanted.
Like, imagine if I showed up at a house to be a cable guy, and I'd be like, yeah, I'm here to fix your cable. And then I was just like, okay, bye.
I've seen that happen before.
Really?
I've had when I lived in Michigan, we had a cable guy come to try to fix our cable, and he basically tracked mud into the house. That was all he accomplished.
Wow.
He was stellar dude.
Okay.
So, yeah, there's going to be no things of the day because I don't have the internet in front of me. In fact, I haven't been on the internet since Thursday morning.
I was able to do some stuff at work today, but in my new job, I actually work a lot.
See, curse of curses, I had work to do on Friday, and I had even more work to do on Monday today.
And
I didn't even touch a computer. I got online at my office for 5 minutes. I checked my email to make sure there was nothing critical going on. I looked into forums to make sure everybody wasn't dead, and then I went to do my business.
This is really not so good at all.
Yes, especially since listenership is up. Not that any of you care, but it seems like things are really picking up suddenly. I don't know if it was because of Katsucon or just randomly, but whatever.
It doesn't help also that, hey, I got this new laptop. I'd really like to,
Install software on.
Install software on it. Possibly download some Ubuntu packages.
Ubuntu.
But no, there's no internet. And the wireless internet at work doesn't work. So, and there isn't an extra wire at my desk. So I'm pretty much SOL with this thing until, that I waited half a month to get it. And now I can't do anything with it except watch DVDs.
Thus, tonight, we are going to talk about the ramifications of not having internet access in an age of internet. Because you see, this is a problem that it really wasn't a problem in recent memory and has become a problem for me in my life and in Scott's life and a lot of geeks' lives. I mean, think about it. Way back when you had a computer, before, I don't know how many of you are old enough, but when you had a computer before the internet, when maybe you could dial into Prodigy Online or AOL, the computer in and of itself was entertaining and useful. You would use your computer whether or not there was an internet connection. I mean, I would go to my computer and do stuff, and many times I wouldn't even bother dialing into Prodigy. Like, I only dialed in if I needed to go online for something.
I think a lot of that was that in those days, I was actually doing a lot of word processing type stuff. I was doing a lot of PC games that were not network PC games.
I was also playing with the computer, just learning about computers a lot.
Yep, I was playing with the computer itself because the computer itself, I still had things to learn about it. Now, there's nothing for me to learn about the computer I'm holding. The only thing I can learn is by getting information from other people using the computers as a tool. It's like when you don't know about computers, the computer itself, learning this crazy advanced tool is interesting. It's sort of like if I had a fluke, right? The fluke is such a crazy advanced tool. Just having one, even having nothing to do with it, would be fun because I'd poke around and learn all the things it can do.
You want to play with my fluke?
No, not really. I got better things to do. But once I learned everything, it would just sit there and I have no use for it unless I suddenly have a use for it.
Which I do. I'm excited about this. I'm going to use the Fluke's cable finding technology to figure out where these coaxial cables are and maybe hunt down where these repeaters are or splitters are or whatever and get rid of them.
Yep. Well, we need to split something so the old lady has cable.
Well, theoretically, she should have a separate drop. So I don't know what's going on with Cablevision in the first place.
Yeah, I think they think, hey, it's one house, one wire, save money, and it still works. It worked for a while. So what's the deal?
Yeah, well, I'm going to track it down because I don't get to do stuff like that anymore. I mean, all my jobs have moved so far away from looking at cables and doing the fun stuff to where basically, like, I supervise and I say what to do, or I write up documentation after the fact, or I push paper around.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, I don't like crawling under floors so much, but I like using flukes. What can I say?
It's fun to use tools, and that's why it's fun to use a computer, because a computer is an all-purpose, amazing... It's pretty much the best tool ever, and using it is fun. And once you know how to use it, it's no longer fun unless you have a use. Sort of like if you got a hammer and you learn how to use the hammer, it's fun to just hammer nails for no reason. But once you've done that, the hammer is no fun without actual nailing to do.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I was a kid, the first time my dad or my grandpa just let me play with a hammer, and I just hammered nails into a board for like an hour. Like, seriously, I was playing with this hammer and this wrench and all these tools they gave me, and I ended up screwing a bunch of screws and nailing a bunch of nails into this one piece of wood.
But now we have a hammer, don't we?
Yeah, well, actually then, it wasn't that much later that my grandpa was building something, and he wanted my help, so I was nailing a bunch of boards together, and it stopped being fun after about 10 seconds.
Yep.
So then fast forward a little bit to middle school. Now I got a cable modem. I go online with like 5 or 6 IE windows open, go to all different websites. I have friends online, friends who I have only online. And I have friends in the town that I only talk to online because none of us call each other. There weren't cell phones
Phones
yet.
are so 1800s, man.
I mean, seriously though, that like in middle school and even early high school, it was weird because cell phones really weren't around yet. Like we had a cell phone, but it's not like I could just call my friends on that cell phone because it cost like $1 a minute to use it. And the battery lasted about 45 minutes. But I communicated with all my friends via ICQ online, and I never used AOL, those heathen AOL users.
I was all with the AOLs, mostly because I didn't have a choice. Like, I knew that AOL was no good, you know, but I didn't have a choice other than dial-up because nothing else was available in the area at the time. And I was trying to figure out and research what was the correct thing to get, but in the end, I had no choice. I got AOL, and that's what we had for a few years until eventually my parents got the DSL.
But even then, when the internet went down, it wasn't a big deal. Like when I was a freshman in high school or when I was in 8th grade. Like if I walked into the rec room and I couldn't get online, I saw the cable modem was blinking, I would have this son of a bitch moment. And then I'd just go do something else because it's not like I needed the internet. All that communication could wait. It's not like news was coming at this incredible rate on the internet, or it wasn't news that I cared about.
I mean, in the AOL days, I'd be kind of pissed if I couldn't get on AOL because that was sort of like, you know, the coolest thing to do on the computer is to go and chat room or go and play a MUD or something like that or visit a website. You know, it was sort of like if you had a game console and one of the games, your favorite game, was only available sometimes. So if the game's not available, it's not the biggest deal. You know, if you came into my house and took, like, you know, the Wii game that I'm playing at the moment, like, out of the house for, like, an hour a day, that wouldn't really bother me so much.
Yeah, I mean, back then, when the cable went out, it was like cable TV going out. All right, I got to do something else, and it wasn't a big deal. Mm-hmm. Fast forward, we're at RIT. If the internet went out, which happened once or twice, we were stuck. It was like having no electricity. The power might as well have been out. In fact, the power being out, as opposed to just the internet being out, was preferable. Because if the power was out, then now everything's all interesting. We can't turn on lights. We all get together and play board games by candlelight. It was always fun when that happened.
Yeah, power outs are awesome. Blackouts rule.
I have to admit that I have had fun in just about every blackout that I've ever lived through.
Actually, the job that I just quit was the people there were very fond of blackouts. They love the blackouts. They were there during the big blackout.
I was directing traffic during the big blackout, and that morning, I was...
Why were you directing traffic?
Because I had nothing else to do, and traffic was snarled up near my house, and I was out riding my bike watching the chaos as people tried to commute home.
Ah, okay.
So I just went out and directed traffic at this intersection. It was fun, because I saw other people doing it at other intersections.
Oh, okay.
I should tell the story of what happened to me during that blackout.
Some other time.
Yeah, because
that was a funny story, the blackout.
Yes, it was. But I will say this. I was standing amidst a giant data center at a factory in IBM working on a server when the power outage happened. And the power went out in the data center, and I didn't know what to do. I was not prepared for that eventuality. That was the last thing I expected to happen that day.
All right, anyway.
But
if the internet goes out, it's sort of like if you're building something with your hammer and your nails, and you run out of nails, and you go to Home Depot, and there's no nails for sale. But you're in the middle of building something. Because the internet, all of us on the internet, us podcasting, you listening to the podcast, people on Wikipedia, we are all now constantly, collectively building a thing. And we can't stop building it.
It's a lot like Ghost in the Shell. Our cyber brains are slowly becoming parallel to one another.
It's like, I don't know, if we're all writing a big book together, and then we all ran out of ink, and it's not done yet.
Think of this, geeks like us, especially people who listen to podcasts and read Slashdot or Dig or Fark or whatever whenever you're on a computer, you're almost constantly communicating. You are at many times throughout the day, many, many, many times, continually in contact with hundreds, if not thousands, of other human beings. You have the ability to contact almost anyone in the industrialized world at any moment if you want to.
Now, it's not so bad. I mean, it's kind of bad if it all stops around the world. But imagine if everyone is working together on something, and you're working with the team, right? And then you miss a meeting. So everyone works on stuff without you for a whole meeting. And you come back the next week, and you totally missed what everyone worked on the last week. And they made a bunch of progress, and you weren't there to experience that progress. And you don't know what's going on. You're lost. You probably lost a lot more than just that one meeting's worth of input into the final result. And it kind of sucks.
Of course, there's also a lot of humor involved. Because I remember at RIT, one time the internet was out. And I remember very specifically that I was sitting on the couch in the living room, and Scott was sitting on the couch in the living room, and Alex, I think, was over. I forget who was over, but we had a bunch of people over. And we're sitting around, what are we going to do? Let's order pizza. And I automatically just went over and sat in front of my computer because I was about to just go to the Papa John's website and order pizza. And I stopped as I was about to type and went, God damn it.
So I said, what's the phone number for the pizza place?
And I just opened up my web browser, typed Google space, then I stopped and went, God damn it.
I mean, the problem we have is that we've replaced everything with the internet. You know, we don't have maps from AAA anymore. We don't call it to order food. We don't use the phone book to find out phone numbers and addresses.
I mean, we're not saying the royal we, because I know a lot of people still use these things.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking us personally, me and Scott.
We don't watch television for entertainment.
We don't even have access to the radio.
We don't have radios that
work. It would be
work.
difficult it would take a good bit of effort for us to get a working radio and listen to a radio station.
The only real things that we have to do without computers, I mean, think about it. Any creative endeavor you want to take on. Like, if I decide that I want to paint a picture, I need a computer.
Actually, see, that's where I disagree with you, because while I couldn't do certain things that I would have otherwise done and wanted to do in my life while the internet is down, at the same time, the internet being down does not in any way bore me, and I can still accomplish just as much without it.
Well, I can accomplish things, but I can't accomplish a lot of things I want to. Like, I can read books, and I can play DS games, and I guess I can't really write. I guess I could write things, because without the internet, I can write.
See, think of this. The internet was down for this past, several days, over the weekend and Friday and Thursday. Mm-hmm. I read a bunch of books, or I started reading a bunch of books.
I finished all my comics except one.
I continued to write my epic guide to podcasting. Yeah. I actually wrote 2 new chapters in it.
Whoa.
I went running every day.
Yeah,
I cleaned my trumpet. I buffed my trumpet. I polished it. I went out and tended to my bike to make sure the winter didn't destroy it.
I did laundry.
I cleaned my room. We cleaned the house. I was never...
Cleaned the house, yep. I baked banana bread.
I was never at a loss for something to do, and while it's annoying that I can't get all this information, the quality of my life was not degraded significantly immediately. The problem is, as the internet continues to be out, like each day that the internet is gone, the damage I am taking from not having the internet increases, because I build up this queue of things that I want to look up, or that I need to know, or that I need to do that I cannot do without the internet.
It's kind of weird because, like, while I am slightly, like, bored when I don't have the internet because... it takes me a while to think of what the hell to do.
Scott, you're like a morphine addict when it comes to the internet.
Well, no, I'm not, because
you were walking around the house and kind of like on edge Friday when there was no internet.
Well, but it's so weird. It's like if I'm in the house and there's no internet, I'm a little but I'll find something to do. I'll eventually just, reconcile to reading a book until I finish all my books.
Oh, those books.
Yeah, those books that I, complain that I don't have time to finish reading. But if I go on vacation, I'll go without internet for like months, and I won't even blink or bat an eye or worry about it at all. But if I'm home and the internet's out, that's suddenly the end of the world.
Well, I think part of the reason that it doesn't bother me, I mean, obviously it's an inconvenience, a great one. But the reason it doesn't bother me is that when I went on co-op, both times when I was working at IBM, then when I graduated from RIT, and I kept working at IBM, I didn't have internet access. And in fact, I used to live in the mountains out in Pokeway at the top of Pleasant Ridge. Not only did I not have internet access, not only was internet access not available out there in any form other than barely functional 33.6 dial-up. 56K didn't work out there because the phone lines were old. My cell phone didn't work because I was on the mountain. I had to drive 20 minutes down the mountain to make a phone call.
I might try to figure out how to get my Bluetooth dial-up networking to work.
So as a result, when I came home from work on any given day, I was absolutely out of communication with the entire world. No one could get a hold of me, and I couldn't get a hold of anyone. And as a result, I basically lived for 3 months as a hermit.
Yeah, I don't want to be a hermit.
Like a techno hermit. I mean, I think back and it's weird, but pretty much every day I would come home from work at like 4, and I'd run for 2 or 3 hours, and then I'd cook dinner, and then I'd go to the bookstore and I'd read like an entire novel, and then I'd come home and it would be like 10, and I'm not tired, and the only thing I have to do the next day is go to work.
It's some life there you got there.
Actually, the fact that the only reason I didn't go insane and take out a bus station or something was that I knew it was temporary.
Were you planning to take out a bus station?
That's pretty much my default. If things go wrong, I'm taking out a bus station.
You really hate the buses that much?
I really don't like buses. I got to admit, I've never really had good experiences on non-banned
Why don't you take
buses.
out something bad, though? Like, I don't know, a chiropractor or something.
Go to an acupuncturist.
Yeah, there you go. Take them out.
I don't know why bus station came to mind. I'm really indifferent to bus stations.
Me also.
In fact, the last time I was at a bus station is when I picked up Greg's friend Meredith in Rochester.
I guess if you count walking past the the what's the terminal?
What terminal?
The one in the city.
The Port Authority bus.
That the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
I haven't walked by that in a while.
We did. We walked by it when we were going to the Comic-Con.
Well, I didn't go in there.
No, I've never actually been in there ever.
Oh, really? I've been in there a couple times.
I've never gone in there because why should I go in there? I never get on a bus.
When New York City was new and shiny to me, I wandered in there because I was curious. I wandered into a lot of places.
Oh. Yeah, the last time
To not get too far off topic, it's real easy to get off topic when I don't have my little teleprompter in front of me telling me what to talk about. I got the monitor on like always, but it's just a desktop with a picture of a tree.
I think the real biggest inconvenience of not having internet is not a lack of entertainment or the lack of the most powerful tool in your tools kit, when you want to do things, even though those are pretty big. It's the lack of access to information. It's as if someone stole your encyclopedia set.
Well, think of this.
You want to know shit all the time, and now you know nothing.
Scott's friend Ian came over. We haven't seen him in a while. He's a good friend of ours. And he's in the house, so we're like, hey, and we sit down, and, we have plenty to do. We played a bunch of Smash Brothers and some WarioWare. We went out to eat and played some board games. Railroad Tycoon, which Alex won by a lot.
Yeah, we were pretty much entertained all day. I never wanted, I guess I wanted for the internet, but I didn't even really think about it because we were doing other shit.
In the span of like 4.5, 5 hours with this friend over, there were at least 20 or 30 moments where something we were about to do was foiled by the fact that we did not have internet access. Little things like we're talking about all the abandoned factories on the waterfront, and he's really interested, like, ooh, that sounds really cool. To which I say, yeah, let me get on Flickr and I'll show you the pictures.
We're like, hey, did you see that video with the you can't
lift 10 Pokemon?
Here, let me show you this great video on YouTube.
Borlax.
Yeah. And then, what else was it? It was like, oh, he's talking about airsoft. So we're like, hey, let's go look up the prices of airsoft guns at that website you just mentioned.
You know what?
There.
It's probably a good
Let me
thing.
delicious the website you just told me about.
And then we're talking like, oh, yeah, we're going to go to Rochester for Toricon. When is Toricon? We have no way to find out.
Yeah, I think what it is back in the day when the computer and the internet was less, I didn't rely on it as an external memory storage.
Ooh, just like in Ghost in the Shell.
Just like in Ghost in the Shell. Now, I don't remember a lot of things. Without the internet, I am a much dumber person. Not in terms of being able to figure things out or,
Scott,
my knowledge potential, but in terms of the facts stored in my brain are much less.
At least 10 or 15 of the times we wanted the internet we were having not really an argument, but we were just talking about something. And then the question comes up where we're not sure about one of the facts. Or like, I think that this building was for this, and you think it was for that, and we really don't know. Well, let's look it up on Wikipedia, the only source of information anymore.
Yeah. It's like, hey, who was the guy who wrote that book? I don't know. Let's go find out.
And we have no way to get any of this
information. And it's
information.
not just stuff that we don't know yet that we need to look up. A lot of it's stuff that I did know, but I just don't remember because I don't have to anymore.
But here's the interesting thing, and I think it speaks a lot about how much the way we live has changed just in the last decade when the internet went from nothing to everything. Before the internet was like this, people just wouldn't find out a lot of the things that we want to know. I mean, if you're living somewhere and you want to know some semi-obscure fact about someone who was a general in World War II, your option is, if you really want to know,
Go to the library.
you have to go to the library, spend at least an hour researching, because you're not just going to find the book that talks about this one guy immediately. You're going to have to talk to the librarian.
Yeah,
You
I
have
mean,
to
there are
track it
some.
down.
Yeah, there are some types of questions the library can answer very easily, or that an encyclopedia can answer very easily. Like, or an almanac actually is really good for just answering questions. Like, what's the population of so and so? Who was the famous guy in this battle? Who won this war? You know, what years did this take place? History. You know, what's the name of this scientific reaction? What or the process of it? That's easy stuff to find. But like, what was the name of the guy in that thingy there? Or, you know,
Who directed that movie?
yeah, who directed that movie? All right, what else did he direct? All right, who was the actor in that? Without IMDb, that becomes a chore.
But here's the thing. That information was not readily available in our lifetime, and we got on just fine without it. So our lives worked before we had this constant feed of information. Now that we are accustomed to this constant feed of information, our lives slowly grind to a halt without that feed. I really don't have anything where to go with that. There's too many ramifications for me to really go into a lot of depth about.
It's true.
Oh, I'm
but I don't know
I'm
what
so
to-
dependent on this information now. And while I can live without it, like I was saying before, and I was a hermit for 3 months, living in the mountains, no contact with anyone. I would drive 20 minutes down the mountain to call my mom and talk for a half hour.
Well-
But during that time, the only reason my life didn't collapse and I didn't just go nuts was that, one, I knew it was temporary. It was like, at the end of this time, I am moving somewhere else where I will have internet. And now, if the internet was just down for a day or two, it'd be fine. But the fact that the internet is down indefinitely, each day that goes by, I am more and more behind on what's going on in the world. And, of course, then again, I gotta wonder, how much does me not knowing about what's going on in the world immediately affect me, as opposed to finding out 2 or 3 days later when I watch the news or read a newspaper at work?
I just don't know.
Am I really a better person for knowing that the president of Djibouti died of colon cancer 5 minutes ago?
No.
I don't think he actually did. That was an example.
No, you're not, because even when I have the internet, I don't read those stories.
Yeah, well, I do.
Yeah. It doesn't affect me not to know them, just like it doesn't affect you not to know the stories I read about computers and video games.
Yeah. But at the same time, by getting all this information constantly, I always feel like knowing that X happened in Djibouti doesn't really affect my life. And knowing that Barack Obama said this, and that John McCain said this in American politics, alone don't mean anything to me. Or whatever's going on in France's government right now doesn't mean anything to me. But by getting all these bits of information constantly, I feel like by knowing all of them all the time, I'm able to form this broad picture of the world that I really would have no way of doing before the internet. I don't know how it helps me, but I feel like it does. I feel like I am more aware of myself and my surroundings by having this vague cloud of information that is oftentimes relevant, surprisingly.
Well, I think if anything, without that cloud of information, you start living not just in the present time, but you live, a life only influenced by what's happening immediately around you. Your perspective is very as far as your eyes can see, and that's it. Like if you're a farmer and you work in a farm, all you see is that farm and the town you work in and whatever, then the way you live your life is going to be based on that town. If you're farming, is going to be affected by something far away, or maybe your farming will affect something far away, or if there's going to be a competing farm in another state or something like that.
Or like say you use this one technique of farming, and people out on the internet have discovered that this technique actually destroys the soil and pollutes and is bad for the environment and generally is a bad idea, but you won't know it right away. You won't find that out right away. So you wouldn't know that you're doing something bad.
Yep. It's having just an open eye to everything that's going on. It allows you, if you are smart, to make your life better in many ways.
Well, I guess to me, it's hard to describe how I feel about this, but if you've ever read Watchmen, when Ozymandias is standing there and he's looking at that wall of TV screens showing every television station in the world, like all the news, all the commercials, everything.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't watch any individual channel. He never does. He walks into the room and kind of just has the 1,000-yard stare looking at the wall. And by picking up all the bits and pieces from all these extraneous, simultaneous, real-time elements, he's able to form this general understanding of like the zeitgeist of the world at that time, or what's going on right now, or the general direction of things to come. And that's how I feel the internet is affecting my life on a broad scale. Because I feel like my scope is narrowing with each day that I don't have internet access. Like there are events going on that I don't know about. So my extrapolations and my guesses and all those are becoming less and less likely to be accurate because I'm having to guess further and further out with less and less information.
I definitely am having the same feeling of narrowing going on. Even though I was able to go through my Google Reader today and delicious a bunch of things, I actually stopped to read any of them. I pretty much tagged them expecting the internet to work when I got home.
But here's the other thing. I'm not saying that this is bad, necessarily. Because one thing Scott and I noticed was that we got a lot done without the internet to distract us.
Yeah. Well, I think if it's sort of like, we don't have a dryer. We only have a washing machine, right? If we move somewhere else or we got a dryer suddenly, that would help us out a lot. Not having the internet is sort of like not having a dryer after having one. It's like, it was so convenient and so great, and our lives are so improved, or at least they felt improved, by being able to dry our clothes in our house, that if we go back to not having it, well, right now we don't have one. We take our clothes to the laundromat, and it still works. We can still live and have clean clothes. But not having it is just, it just feels so worse after having it. Whereas if you've never had it, then it doesn't feel so bad not to have.
Of course, the other interesting thing is that without the internet, we have almost no use for our computers. So until just now, when I started to do the show, all weekend, for the most part, all of our computers were off.
And the house was so quiet.
The house was startlingly quiet. It was unnerving. The first night I went to sleep, I could hear everything in the house.
I heard noises, and I was afraid that they were something else, and I was like, oh God, what was that?
I heard Scott rolling around in his bed on the opposite side of the house.
Normally, all I hear when I go to bed is whir.
Occasionally, doo-doo.
Yep, I hear computers, just fans blowing constantly.
No, as I was laying in bed,
and you don't realize how loud they are until you turn them all off.
I heard every single car drive by on the street. I heard the trees rustling in the wind outside my window.
When I was in the bathroom, I heard the train pull into the station far away.
Yeah, the train station is like 3 miles away.
Yeah, and I heard the train go, dude.
Well, I hear that anyway, but that's because it's actually really loud.
Well, in my room, I don't hear it so much, but yeah, it's pretty loud.
Yeah, for some reason, I hear it really loud in my room, and I like it. I actually like that sound at night.
It's all right. I don't mind it.
It's a good sound to hear in the distance late at night, a train whistling, just, going off.
Yeah, you know what's not good? The subway is like, I'm on the second floor in my building, and the subway at that part of the city is like right under the street. So every few minutes, the office goes, chicka, 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 chicka.
Oh.
It's not.
It's like in Blues Brothers where they go to his apartment.
It's not that bad, but I don't think anyone else notices it because it's not really as bad as Blues Brothers.
You get used to it.
But yeah, I actually still notice it. It's like a little bit of rumbliness, and you can definitely tell the subway's
Give it a
going
month
by.
and you'll lose it. Because remember, I grew up with birds, and to this day, if I'm in a house and say someone has a bunch of birds or a bunch of dogs, and the dog's just barking constantly, I don't even hear it. It doesn't even affect me at all. I could just sit in a room with dogs barking all day, and it wouldn't even bother me.
Yeah, the thing is, maybe, I think part of the reason dogs barking alone, the noise doesn't bother me. But if a dog is, in the room with you barking, there's a part of that bark noise that actually hurts a part of my ear. And that's the part that bothers me.
What?
Really, I think that there's something if a dog barks loudly.
Scott, I think that's just your parents' dog.
No, there's other dogs. Pretty much any dog barking, except for a yap dog. But any real dog that barks, bark, it hurts well, growling is not barking, but it hurts my ear. There's a part of the bark that hurts my ear, at the peak of it. And I guess maybe if you keep hearing dogs bark, eventually you won't be able to hear that anymore. It'll damage your ear.
I don't know. I never had that problem as a kid.
Maybe your ear was damaged early. I don't know.
I think you're just weird.
Whatever.
But, what I was saying before we got off on topic was just that on this one hand, by not having the internet like this, my scope narrows. But on the other hand, it was pleasant to have an evening where I never thought I should go upstairs and see what's happening in the world. Instead, I couldn't. So I lived my life in the immediate present, and it was the first time I've done that in quite some time. Yeah. And it's almost to the point where we're thinking about maybe every Friday evening, we just won't use the internet.
Well, I think what it is just I find myself, I realize that I do sit at the computer just, as the default, and I actually spend more time there than I think.
Yep.
It's like I'll go when I get home and go to Google Reader and look at all the stories, which takes pretty much almost the same amount of time, almost no matter how many stories are in there. And there'll be like 30 new stories, but I'll still spend like 20 minutes there clicking through them.
Yep, or even when we were at RIT, I remember this would happen often. If we're sitting at our computers for whatever reason and the internet's down, we just keep making squares on the desktop with the selecty bit of the mouse.
Yeah. It's not so much that, using the computer is taking up a lot of my time. It's that I'm spending a lot of time just sitting at the computer not doing anything, not even really realizing that I'm wasting a whole bunch of time.
Yeah, I mean, when I first got access to the internet for that brief span of time at work this morning, I used that time so efficiently it would make a German cry.
Yeah, I basically just have to not keep I'll go and load up all the webcomics even though I've already read them, and I just wasting 10 minutes, and maybe there'll be one new webcomic, but
you still look at all the rest of them.
Yeah, why am I wasting 10 minutes of my time when I could be doing something else? And while that's not a big deal on its own, you add all those up over the course of a day. I do that like 5 or 6 times, or I'll scroll down Dig yet again, even though there's only 3 new stories, and I've now wasted like 2 hours that I could have used to do even more awesome stuff. And if you don't know, I mean, look at us now. We already are so efficient in our time usage, even with using computers in the way that I just described, that we can make a podcast 4 nights a week, where most people, that's insane. So if I can manage to if I'm not use the computer for no reason and only do what I need to do on it and nothing else, and not waste time sitting at it doing nothing, holy crap.
Yep. So I'm going to try to do that. I'm very much going to pointedly, not so much try to change my internet using habits, but observe them. I'm going to keep an eye on how much time I spend on the internet versus how much I get done on the internet.
I'm pretty much, from now on, if I'm doing something on a computer that's not, work, like for work, I'm going to pay attention to what I'm doing. I'm going to say, is this something I need to do right now, or am I wasting my time? I'll make sure I only load up the webcomics once a day. I'll make sure that I only, I'll click on Google Reader, I'll keep it open, I'll look at the number, and if there aren't over 100 things in there, I won't even bother looking at it, because what could possibly be so urgent that it's worth spending all that time? I won't, I'll go through the videos on Dig once a day at home on the TV, where it's more entertaining.
Now,
Instead
of course,
looking at them constantly.
The real important factor is how long do you think that's going to last? The internet's going to come back, and after a week, we'll have forgotten all this. We'll just be sitting there looking at Dig.
Well, I think part of the problem, as soon as the internet comes back, I'm going to be spending a lot of time loading up this laptop, which always takes a lot of time.
Yeah, but that's fun.
It is fun.
That's a lot of fun.
Yep.
So, yes, welcome to all the new listeners and such. This was a slightly non-typical episode of Geeknights due to the fact that we all, as you well are aware, do not have an internet connection and are thus powerless in the face of the onslaught of information that is going right past the house. We're probably not going to have internet for much of the rest of this week. We're not sure what we're going to do, but suffice to say, the show must go on.
Show must go on. The show must go on. Yeah.
Good guy.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Odeo. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.